Good morning again. This is Daniel Okinau. I would like to do a presentation on Native American origins. And I'd like to start with the 12 tribes of Israel. 2 tribes, Judah and Benjamin, remained intact from Babylon, and that's where Creator's Son Yeshua came to. However, the other 10 tribes were assimilated throughout the world. They wanted to destroy them, and so they scattered them throughout the world. And that tribe was known as Ephraim, the son of Joseph, who many tribes get their roots from. And so they went north primarily through Russia, Mongolia, and across the land bridge into this country. It's interesting that the Cherokee language has Russian roots in their language. I just recently came across a man who did a study on that. And so there was in the 17th century a man named James Adair, and he produced a book called Out of the Flames. He lived for 37 years with native tribes on the East Coast. He was an anthropologist. He studied the language, the culture, everything. He concluded that they had Hebrew roots, and it was very well respected. And Jonathan Edwards agreed with his writings as well in the 17th century. It's a very hard read, but it's really a classic book on the early origins of tribal life. They use, for instance, the word for the Creator as Yehovah, which the Jews say is Jehovah. So, with that in mind, there's also, if you study the ancient histories of the tribes from Peru to Canada, including some of the islands, which I have a record of that, where the book is called He Walked the Americas. There is records in all these tribes of an appearance of a prophet, healer, God-man, born of a virgin, that came and brought dignity to each tribe. He was against the snake people of human sacrifices and abuse, and he brought dignity and value back to each culture and city wherever he walked. He's probably best well known for being the peacemaker in the Iroquois, 5 nations originally, now 6 with the Tuscarora. And he basically said, you as tribes are fighting each other, you're abusing your women and the children, you need to come together in a unification. And they formed the earliest democracy on this planet, which our Constitution is based on here in the United States. And so the Iroquois Confederacy is read once a year. I've heard it read in my stay up in 6 Nations in Canada on the Grand River. And so the appearance of the peacemaker to the Iroquois is an example of the appearances that were made all the way from Peru, even into some of the islands in the Pacific, to different tribes. And there's ancient records that I have of reading this. And in fact, the early settlers who came into this nation, the Lenni Lenape, were known as Turtle People, and the Turtle People really followed more the teachings of this prophet, healer, God-man, born of a virgin. And so, as a result, my conclusion is that during the time that Creator's Son was raised from the dead those 40 days, that's when he visited the rest of the 10 tribes that had been scattered throughout the earth. Now, it's interesting to me that some of my friends, my chief included, whose name is Sukina, have gone to Israel, and they were playing Native American chants at the gates. And the Hasidic Jews came up to them and said, "How do you know our most ancient Hebrew songs?" They said, "No, these are native chants." Well, they were singing like Hey, Yah. Hey stands for spirit in the Hebrew language. Yah stands for Yahweh. And so there's a lot of similarities in the culture. For instance, the Cherokee had cities of refuge. They had a priesthood. They had lunar festivals. They traced the roots back to Joseph. The Cherokee brought an Ark of the Covenant into battle. And so you see a lot of remnants of these roots. You know, the Ashkenazis up in Wisconsin and so on have Hebrew roots. And so there's a lot of similarities in the different cultures between the early lost and scattered tribes. Of course, the Mormons have done studies on this, and so on. And so our origins have Hebrew roots. Well, it's curious to me, too, that the Hebrew worldview, which says that Yahweh, the Creator, integrates with all of His creation, so how you take care of it is so important and so valuable, and that all things have life. Well, that's Native American values. It's not Western world values, it's Native American values. So we have the same value system and the same worldview as the Hebrews. Much of our language has origins there as well. And so the medicine wheel, for instance, is the same shape as the Paleo-Hebrew letter Tet, which implies surrender to the Creator. On and on and on, it just really demonstrates that our origins come from these lost 10 tribes. And so I just thought I'd put this out. I would recommend reading James Adair's book, Out of the Flames. Also, He Walked the Americas is a record of the early history. I have the early pictorial history in pictograph of the Lenni Lenape, and they're coming to our country. So I would challenge you to kind of look at your roots and go back to the Hebrew worldview, because it is so important. That's why the Creator integrates with His creation through His Son, Yeshua. Yeshua means Yahweh is salvation. And His Son has been misrepresented by, I believe, the Catholic Church when they came over to this country and put our relatives in boarding schools and abused them with genocide and stripping of culture and stripping of language and all the abuse that was done in the boarding schools. That was a misrepresentation of Creator's Son. So I would encourage you to do some studies on your own of Native American origins. This is Daniel Okina, and I just thought I'd put out this particular blog to YouTube. Thank you so much.